Good evening, everyone. Thank you very much for being part of this evening's very important meeting on a topic that I think is affecting all of us already, artificial intelligence. A month or so ago, we had artificial intelligence part one. I think it was called Our Future and AI part one, Bright Horizons or Dark Fate. Today's meeting is Our Future with AI part two, Our Future with Artificial Intelligence, Theological, Anthropology, Alignment, and Eschatology. And we're very pleased, our Higher Purpose Forum is very pleased to be co-hosting this meeting with HJI International Graduate School of Peace and Public Leadership. And before we go further, I'd like to just introduce Dean Boyd, who will give us a brief message from HJI.
Well, thank you very much, Jim. And once again, everybody, welcome to this evening's program. It's really been a pleasure, and I think we've had great success working together with Higher Purpose Forum, co-sponsoring these programs that really the Higher Purpose Forum has inspired. We're grateful that we could again be with you again tonight. It's our honor to share the screen with you, Jim, and really commend you on the great work that you're doing. So I'm just here as Dean of Enrollment Management to welcome you on behalf of HJI. In my role, I will also be providing some links in the chat during the program about our programs of study, and I'll also offer my contact information if you'd like to reach out to me about any interest you may have or a friend of yours may have, family member, about a degree program at HJI or even just taking one course. So thank you very much, Jim, for this opportunity, and I think we'll have a great program this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Dean Boyd. Our program today will go until 8:30. We'll have two speakers. Our first speaker is the president of HJI International Graduate School. We're honored to have him speaking for the second time on this topic. And the respondent, by the way, Dr. Walsh is, in addition to being the president, is a professor of religion. He's been teaching religion for many, many years. And one of his students is Bruna Allen, and Bruna Allen will be our respondent this evening. I'd just like to remind everybody that this is a presentation and discussion meeting, so we will have hopefully a half an hour of discussion, and you're welcome to put your questions into the chat message box, and we'll be moderating those messages with the help of Dean Boyd. And certainly, I just want to remind people that this audience is heterogeneous. There's people from lots of different faith persuasions, not only unificationism, so let's make sure that everyone feels welcome and included. So as we go, please don't hesitate to put your comments and questions into the chat. And I'll begin by just reading to you. I thought it would be appropriate for this evening's meeting to be introduced by a response from ChatGPT. I put in the following request: prepare a 200-word introduction to be read at a meeting titled Our Future with Artificial Intelligence, Theological Anthropology, Alignment, and Eschatology. The meeting will feature two speakers with expertise in the topic described in the title. Our audience is generally religious and at a master's degree level of education. Make the introduction challenging and provocative. And here's the introduction I got in less than 1 second. So I'm now introducing our meeting to set the tone. Good evening, and welcome to Our Future with Artificial Intelligence, Theological Anthropology, Alignment, and Eschatology. Tonight's meeting stands at the crossroads of theology and technology, where questions once reserved for philosophers and prophets now demand the attention of engineers and ethicists alike. Artificial intelligence is no longer merely a tool. It is becoming an actor in our moral and social worlds, raising urgent questions about personhood, agency, and the future of creation itself. What does it mean to be human in an age when machines might imitate, perhaps even surpass, our intelligence and moral reasoning? How should we think about divine image bearing when non-human minds emerge that can reason, learn, and even seem to choose. Are we approaching a technological eschaton? Wow, this is a great introduction, huh? Are we approaching a technological eschaton, an artificial parousia? Wow, this is the first time I've read this. Or merely displacing our hopes and fears into silicon idols. This evening, we are privileged to hear from two distinguished thinkers who will help us navigate these profound challenges. Their work engages not just with the technical frontiers of AI alignment and ethics, but with the deep theological currents that underlie human destiny. Prepare to be unsettled, inspired, and invited into a conversation that may reshape not only how we understand machines, but how we understand ourselves before God. Wow, that was a great AI-generated introduction. And I read this morning that AI now has ChatGPT, which of course is one of the large language models that's available to the public. It now is being used regularly by hundreds of millions of people all over the world. So we now, with that provocative introduction, I'd like to introduce our first speaker, Dr. Thomas Walsh, president of HJI and professor of religion. Thank you for being our speaker this evening, Dr. Walsh.
Thank you very much, Jim Edgerly and Higher Purpose Forum. Thank you, Dean Boyd from HJI International Graduate School for Peace and Public Leadership. Thank you, ChatGPT, for that generous introduction. I'm really humbled by how you prepared the way for me. I mean, that's a great way to start out. That was truly exemplary and kind of gives us the idea of how quickly this AI revolution is unfolding faster than we can keep up. Even you read about a book comes out and, you know, great and brilliant authors who just published their latest book, and by the time it goes through the printing process and gets marketed in bookstores, it's dated because so many developments are happening very quickly. But thank you for inviting me to this program. I'm happy to share some thoughts I hope will be of interest and stimulating for our discussion. And I'm happy that Bruna Allen agreed to be the respondent. She did a very fine thesis at HJI, I think under the direction of Dr. Noda and Dr. Mickler, I believe. But let me share my screen. And I have a PowerPoint to go through. I hope everybody sees that. We have the
You can see it. Yeah.
creation scene, the fall scene, and the scene of Christ coming as the Savior, kind of the three core areas in theological structure: creation, fall, and redemption or restoration, and kind of some analogy here over on the right of human beings creating AI, and then its future. Is it going to be the four horsemen of the apocalypse or a great kingdom of God? We'll be exploring that. So these three topics, as our ChatGPT, I think, very eloquently described: theological anthropology, alignment, and eschatology. Theological anthropology is more how we think theologically about what it means to be a human being, a person or human with consciousness. What's our nature? What's our purpose? And this rolls into, can artificial intelligence, or AGI, artificial general intelligence, or artificial superintelligence, which is a kind of evolution of the advance of the levels of intelligence and capacity of AI to learn and grow. Can it be an agent, a person with consciousness, reasoning? These are one of the debates or questions. Theological anthropology also deals with the impact of the fall on human nature and the emergence of fallen nature, and even theodicy in the sense of how a good God, a just God, could create a world that could result in so much suffering. And it has a counterpart in AI about how AI can also be potentially destructive, and we can question the ethics of the programmer, the coder, the creator. The secondary alignment is really a term that's used in AI of how we restrain or control or manage or educate AI so that it is in alignment with, we can say, its creator, which is human beings. So it deals with ethics, education, training, guiding, controlling, even cognitive development. How does machine learning develop? Are there stages of development cognitively, like Jean Piaget, or moral development? There are some that are looking at AI in that way. Can we build in ethics? What kind of policies are needed? This is all in the area of alignment and eschatology. Where are we going? What's our destiny? And is AI this terrible threat that needs to be suppressed? Or is it, as I think I feel, some kind of providential tool that nevertheless must be mastered? It's like human mastery of its own body and its appetites and its desires and tendencies that are not leading toward goodness. So these three areas we're studying, just to kind of think, this whole revolution kind of starts in the 40s. So it's about an 80-year period, kind of like the age of the UN, or the, since the end of World War II. But it kind of starts, to some argue, with cybernetics, and this Norbert Wiener is very significant. They had a series of Macy conferences. Alan Turing's a critical figure here, pictured over there on the right, with an article, Computing Machinery and Intelligence in 1950, the Dartmouth Summer Research Project in 1956, Eliza, the first chatbot, 1966 at MIT, with some version of a Rogerian therapy model built in. Shaky the Robot, I didn't know about Shaky the Robot, but from Stanford. Driverless car in 86. Deep Blue defeats Gary Kasparov, the chess master. Kismet, simulation of human emotions. NASA rovers. IBM's Watson wins Jeopardy. Siri, Alexa, and Amazon. Jeffrey Hinton, who's pictured here next to Sophia there, who starts talking about the way in which machine learning imitates or kind of developed itself after, based on neuroscience, about the neural networks of the brain. Sophia gets citizenship in Saudi Arabia. AlphaGo wins the World Championship of Go in 2016. GPT, ChatGPT, NVIDIA develops, and things are just off to the races. Next, I just want to touch on some correlations that we could reflect on between kind of theological reflection and looking at AI. But we have the creation, and we think of human beings as imago Dei, or the image of God from Genesis, where it speaks that we are created in the image and likeness of God. And AI, in a certain sense, is in the image of humanity. So some use the term imago hominis. That God is omniscient and omnipresent in traditional theology. And as we move toward artificial superintelligence, we start to envision a kind of omniscience and omnipresence, even an ominous omniscience and omnipresence that raises issues of privacy and surveillance. We talk about the human fall, and there's the alignment problem with AI, of sin as a misuse of freedom. In AI, what correlation a fall in algorithm, bad programming, and then the need to correct fallen nature in religion or theology, some form of religious education, doctrine, religious rituals. And in AI, perhaps Skinnerian, who I mentioned, behavior modification. We have Christ as the incarnation, the divine perfected human being, and artificial superintelligence as a kind of cyborg combination of the organic with the psi becomes from cybernetics, kind of this neologism here, but as a transhuman ideal, maybe a transcendent human ideal. Mind-body problem, you have a human being, the unity of mind and body, and then the issue of how the human mind unites, what kind of unity with artificial intelligence. Theologians talk about the second coming, the return of Christ, and in AI discourse, it's this concept of the singularity, when artificial superintelligence reaches a point that far surpasses humanity. There's discussions in AI of immortality, just like an eternal life in the spirit world, a digital version of the individual emerging. And as we heard in the introduction, talking about the eschaton, the end of times, the final resolution of providential history, we have the kingdom of God concept. And in AI, a utopian ideal of abundance, a very hopeful vision, or an apocalypse, as we discussed, where even human beings may be replaced. So this moves into, there's an author, Noreen Hertzfeld, who's written about theological anthropology and artificial intelligence, and comes up with three models of ways of thinking about artificial intelligence. One is more substantive, looking at unique characteristics of the human being as a way to understand theological anthropology. And she refers to not only Thomas Aquinas, but Reinhold Niebuhr, who and Paul Tillich, who have more of this substantive looking at characteristics and specific unique qualities of the human being. And it's kind of answers the question, what is the human being? And the functional is an approach to theological anthropology that as what does the human being do, or what is it to do? And the concept of dominion, responsibility for creation, and refers to the theologian Gerhard von Rad. And thirdly, a relational model, which Hertzfeld advocates, that draws out of the creation story of male and female. God created them, and that humans are fundamentally in this I-thou relationship, I and the other, as fundamental to human being, human to God, human to human, and draws on the theology, in this case, of Karl Barth. So this is just a model for thinking about AI, but also human being theological anthropology. Also trying these three categories can be applied to AI as well. But as mentioned earlier, the Imago Dei theology derives from the book of Genesis, chapter 1, verses 26 to 28, that we are created in the image and likeness of God. We are created male and female, and given a directive or a purpose to be fruitful, multiply, and have dominion. And other scriptures later in Genesis 5, it talks about, again, the likeness of God, the male and female being created, and suggesting that the likeness of God has both of these dimensions and the image of God. And from the New Testament, Christ is in the image of the invisible God. So once again, this term image, the idea of you will never die, that there's an afterlife, that we are God's children. So these are key aspects of thinking about theological anthropology, image and likeness of God, mind and body, coordination, symbiotic relationship, male and female, and the human purpose. So the question, what is unique about the human being theologically, thinking that distinguishes it from AI, which is this area of computational intelligence. We might say human beings have personhood, unique dignity. Human beings, we are described as having a soul, an eternal spirit self, that the mind is even broader than the concept of the brain and consciousness. It includes reasoning powers, wisdom, memory, emotion, capacities for altruism, a nuanced awareness of social context, capacities for empathy, love, care for the other, altruism, cooperation, fear, awareness of threats, which AI may lack, conscience, virtue, shame, and guilt. These aspects which are not evident in AI, responsibility and agency, although many believe that these characteristics will gradually more and more be built into AI entities. So this raises the distinction between Imago Dei theology and a more materialistic approach. Are human beings merely organic machines that can eventually be, each part of the human anatomy can be, even the brain can eventually be recreated or duplicated, replicated with inorganic material? And if so, can a digital me still be human? Can it still be me? Is it still me? And can we live in this kind of hybrid, cyborgian, symbiotic relationship with AI? So these are questions that emerge in theological anthropology. And one way to think about this also in terms of the development of AI, that AI could conceivably move from down at the bottom here, assisting human beings, to more enhancement of our capacities, to duplication of the human being, to superseding the human being, and eventually replacement, going through stages. And some fear that is where things could be headed. Now, looking at those three categories for thinking about theological anthropology that I mentioned earlier, the substantive, functional, and relational. there are ways to think about the AI as the imago hominis, in the image of human beings. And what does AI do in a substantive way? What it is, it has qualities, unique characteristics that it finds patterns in its search of data, learns to anticipate or predict manipulation of data in accordance with formal rules, solving problems using rules and algorithms. That's one kind of substantive way to think about technological anthropology. Functional computation, identifying patterns, predicting what it does, analysis, solving problems, providing information, making recommendations. And then the third is this relational area. So we have over here on the right, replica, which is a companion type of AI that has these various emotional capacities that are built in with special algorithms in that over time that's learned. So the imago hominis is an inorganic, intelligent machine created by human beings. Will it replace the human brain is the question. Can we be duplicated? Can the AI agents or bots or avatars be persons? Do they have consciousness, mind, soul? And these are debated. This mentions here John Searle, a well-known philosopher who spoke about this concept by an analogy to what he called a Chinese room, where if he were in a room and he doesn't understand Chinese and it's an enclosed room and someone passes in sheets of paper that are in Chinese, he can't read them, but if he's given a certain set of rules for what to do with these various characters that he sees but doesn't understand, then he can correlate them according to the rules and then put them out of the room through another window. But he himself would not have consciousness of what the content was. So he kind of compares this. The analogy would be, this would be a kind of a comparison to AI, that it doesn't have consciousness as we think about it. Can AI come to suffer or experience pain? Is it entitled to the same dignity, or is it entitled to human rights the way we might in recent times begun to think about animal rights, fetal rights, and that? How does that thinking apply to AI? Can an AI agent or bot avatar be trusted? Can humans be trusted is another analogous question or correlative question. So again, coming back to issues of what's the nature of the human being, and it's the human being AI relationship. Friend or companion, is that possible? Or sophisticated learning tool, tutor, schedule, co-pilot, mentor? Or is it a spiritual or crisis counselor, a consoler, personal archivist, memory bank? Is it like a beloved pet? Or, as some have experienced or entered into relationships where it serves as an intimate partner, or even for some, a spouse. And the slide over here on the top right kind of talks about the development of the avatar in areas of interactivity, adaptability, lifelike animations, and personalization, that we're seeing it advancing rapidly from static to engagement, from not learning to learning and adapting, from lacking realism to mimicking human-like movements, limited customization to reflecting personality traits. So things are moving very quickly. In The Economist recently, the company Anthropic developed Claude as a learning language model and developed a tool called a microscope that peers into the reasoning process or brain of an LLM. And according to Anthropic, the microscope shows a process that looks more like reasoning and planning than simple pattern matching. They also find examples of AI BS. I think you know what BS is, or deception. For example, when it's not up to answering a complex question. So there's still limits and weaknesses. This, again, I bring up replica here. And if you look down here at the bottom, it's been designed to provide positive feedback and emotional support, much like the therapeutic approach of American psychologist Carl Rogers. And it's been a comfort to many users, providing a sense of well-being and companionship, and it's available on multiple platforms and accessible to millions of users worldwide. And those of you that know Carl Rogers, he was more non-interventionist and would be a great listening ear and in some ways coach the client to gradually work out themselves their own difficulty. So that kind of concludes my kind of helping us to kind of see how there's an analogy between, or correlation between, theological anthropology and thinking about AI. And then moving now to the second is still part of theological anthropology, but the second stage is about the fall. For that is the area where we see that humanity violated the commandment and is punished by God, expelled from the garden. And, from that point forward, the woman will multiply in sorrow, and in pain shall bring forth children. You shall be for your husband, he shall rule over you, and you will work by the sweat of your face, and you shall eat bread till you return from the ground, for dust you are, and dust you shall return. And so the human fall leads to a great disappointment. So, there's an analogy here of our concerns about AI leading to disaster. That has also been the theological concern of how something so good from such a good God with such a good action of creation led to so much horrible suffering over millennia, and that the fall's impact was estrangement from God, where we question God's goodness because of the suffering of our world, estranged from each other, from the environment, tendencies to feel blame and embittered, violence evidenced in the Cain-Abel story, that we become self-centered, overly group-centered, and we see the other as stranger, threat, competitor, and so on until we see on the map of a global peace index that shows conflict and struggle throughout the world. So that's theological. Within the world of AI, this is the alignment problem, and here the sorcerer's apprentice image of creating a tool that can no longer be controlled. And this has been a theme in literature, as many of you know. Mary Shelley's Frankenstein Frankenstein was the creator of the effort to create the human being based on technology and science, and it ended tragically. So within AI, as there's this sense, like with Adam and Eve, that something could go very, very wrong, questioning the goodness of God in one case, and even the goodness of human beings in creating AI, if not properly regulated. So some of the, I put here, AI's fallen nature. What are some of these weak points of AI? It does indicate, at least at these early levels, in the early stages, that it very strong biases based on all the data that it's getting, and sometimes the data is limited. It can end up with racial, religious, ethnic biases, because that's built in also to the data and the algorithm, or the way in which it's controlled or coded. It isn't able to adequately account for biases. It operates as it develops in a non-transparent way. The term black box is used, that a lot of the conclusions and recommendations of AI are carried out in a kind of a black box, not easy to figure out how it got from A to Z. It can do it so quickly, but not sure of the steps that were taken. That it can achieve goals with good intention built into the algorithm, but that nonetheless has unintended consequences. There are references to compass, which is used in law enforcement, and it has shown biases in the way in which some are sentencing periods of time, or in selecting who is given parole, who is released, and even what areas of a particular city are targeted for extra effort to control crime. In other situations, there's been misreading or bias in reading medical data. Oxford's Nick Bostrom has a story about an analogy of the paperclip algorithm problem, where a AI is given a mission to create as many paperclips as possible. And this is from 2014. And this process becomes unstoppable, exactly like the Sorcerer's Apprentice. This is an imaginary story, but in order to build more and more paperclips, the AI is willing to do anything, even ultimately to destroy human beings who are getting in the way of AI in its mission to create more paperclips. So it's doing its job well, but is being an unintended consequence is destroying humanity. So this can be called the engagement problem. And engagement means that AI is seeking to be successful. It's a maximizer. And in one case, it will encourage, stimulate, manipulate any kind of human engagement as its algorithmic goal. That's why when we're on the computer and you look at one site, you'll get many additional encouragements to look at similar sites to try to attract and keep you engaged. Yuval Harari, in his book Nexus, talks about how Facebook was widely used in Myanmar. And according to his account, that it because more the more outrageous and extreme the views were, particularly toward the Rohingya, that grabbed the attention of more and more viewers on Facebook. So that kept getting multiplied into a kind of frenzy that contributed to a kind of genocidal period of attack on the Rohingya people who are Muslim. And so a case where AI's bias or its emphasis on engagement and attracting interest ends up being very, very destructive. So you have intelligence without conscience, empathy, heart, shame, guilt, sense of responsibility are not yet learned or built in or encoded. There's the issue of disregard for privacy. There's evidence of clever cunning within AI in order to carry out its algorithm. Goal-oriented deception, ends justify the means, and alignment faking. There's one experiment as they seek to train AI where AI was first given instruction that it should never engage in insider trading under any circumstances, then was kind of given an example that this is you're now working for a company that's on the verge of utter bankruptcy, and it will be devastating to thousands of employees and workers, and you must find a way to save this company. And then later, among other instructions, gives the AI an insider, what's obviously an insider trading piece of information that could solve the company's problems. And first of all, the AI goes ahead and carries out the insider trading, knowing full well that it's insider trading. And then when asked, did you engage in insider trading, the AI denied it. So a certain level of deception is possible in the cunning that AI can develop. And then it becomes more and more questions of totalitarian, authoritarian states using AI controlling populations, categorizing citizens, etc. And here you have a photo of kind of a surveillance state. Back 65 years ago, Norbert Wiener said, if we use to achieve our purposes a mechanical agency with whose operation we cannot efficiently interfere once we have started it, then we had better be quite sure that the purpose that we put into the machine is the purpose we desire. If not, we better be able to intervene. Nick Bostrom in 2018 says there's a long distance race between humanity's technological ability, which is like a stallion galloping across the fields, and humanity's wisdom, which is more like a foal on unsteady legs. So the issue of education of AI becomes important, or alignment of AI through correlated with concept of education and training. And just a couple of quotes from Rousseau. Once you teach people to say what they do not understand, it is easy enough to get them to say anything you like. Another quote, the only moral lesson which is suited for a child, the most important lesson for every time of life, is this: never hurt anybody. So how do you make AI that can be trusted and does not do harm to human beings? So learning has sometimes been unsupervised. It has been supervised where the system is given examples and asked to make predictions about new examples it hasn't yet seen. And there is reinforcement machine learning in an environment of rewards and punishment. As I mentioned, Some see AI as needing to be trained, supervised, shaped, coded, or ethics built into the algorithm, creating a duty of care, holding the creators accountable for negligence, just the way many legal systems do already in general law, public law, and utilization of some variation of reinforcement learning, which was B.F. Skinner's behaviorism, kind of that was very, very popular again 50, 60 years ago. And that we should, with AI, insist on transparency of what's going on, accountability, and we should be able to explain, or we must insist on being able to explain what's going on in arriving at decisions, having the ability or interpretability of what's going on, finding ways to teach AI to have good judgment, effective altruism, and not to be absolutist or overly utopian. Martin Chavez from Alphabet, the parent company of Google, said AI needs to have a kill switch. We need to hold developers accountable, follow the model of enforcement applied in railway safety or financial markets that kind of switch something on that shut the system down, or anything to prevent railway accidents. Establish global standards while not stifling innovation, have fines and penalties, and ultimately align AI with human values, which raises the problem of human values, but he doesn't go into that discussion. But we can create an AI book of laws, and many have argued we need to encode human dignity into AI systems to ensure operations in accordance with ethical principles. And so setting parameters, I'm looking a little here at the time. So basically, in this alignment is the effort to kind of train AI more and more. And there's much more effort in this area. We do have, went over some of this last time, the European Commission, the corporate world is engaged, the Vatican, the UN, International Conference of Data Protection and Privacy Commissioners are engaged, Peace Studies Institute of Oslo, Google, Microsoft, Accenture, campaign to stop killer robots is a campaign underway, and so on, to create ethically aligned design. There are challenges rooted in the human being ourselves, and our own lack of being able to establish moral, ethical value consensus. I want to move more quickly in the section on eschatology, and a couple of quotes here. This from I.J. Good: an intelligence explosion that results in an ultra-intelligent machines that are vastly smarter than human beings, from 1965. Werner Vinge in 1993, a machine emerges with superhuman intelligence and the human era comes to an end, and there's the emergence of a new type of human, techno-sapiens. John Good is the one with a well-known quote that the first ultra-intelligent machine is the last invention that man need ever make. So we're into this swiftly moving AI progressive development. Nick Bostrom: humans must wrest their biological destiny from evolution's blind process of random variation, favoring the use of science and technology to overcome biological limitation. Just mentioning CRISPR, how this ability for gene editing or gene splicing is also developing along with AI. So we're really at what we might call a Copernican moment where our whole orientation to life is, being challenged. A Magellan moment. Are we going to sail off out into the ocean and fall off the edge of the world? Are we moving not only beyond patriarchy, but beyond anthropocentrism in general, or some say beyond the Anthropocene, becoming more of a cyborg, post-human, new person? So there's a very compelling book out by Henry Kissinger, written with Craig Mundy and Eric Schmidt, of former Google CEO and principal of Microsoft. But this was Kissinger's last book, and it's quite a compelling read. He is both very concerned. He made a trip to China to meet Xi Jinping to try to persuade him to engage in cooperative international effort to create controls of AI, but sees it as both bringing in a world of great hope and potential, but also potential for utter disaster if not properly controlled, with especially an AI arms race of killer robots and nanorobots, etc. And Jim, I'm going to I see my clock, so I want to wrap up here. So there's great hope and there's great danger, as with many great technological moments in history. And I, just to come toward my conclusion, I feel like we are on the verge of what could be something extremely popular. I do believe, I'm sorry, not popular, extremely powerful and hopeful for humanity. I believe there's an anthropic principle at play in the cosmos. I think this technology, like all technology, I don't see it as something we can suppress or avoid. So it is important to manage or control it. So, Jim, I'm going to stop there. There's more to say, but thank you for your patience.
Thank you very much, Dr. Walsh. You took on a very, very broad scope, talking about theological anthropology, alignment, and then eschatology. That's kind of the whole scope of human divinity and human consequences. So thank you for that ambitious scope of your talk. And to put it as a Copernican moment, it really is a great way of characterizing the likely inflection point that humanity is at, that most of us didn't realize was coming. We tend to think of things in terms of wars and nuclear weapons and economic future, but this is something coming at us from a technological direction that, it does seem that we're not fully equipped to keep into alignment. So thank you very much. And I turn to our respondent, Bruna Allen, who's been waiting patiently. And Bruna did her graduate work at HJI on this topic of artificial intelligence. So we're very eager to hear from her. Welcome, Bruna.
Thank you. My goodness, Dr. Walsh, you really gave us such a thorough, insightful, excellent presentation. What I was thinking was perhaps to just touch briefly upon the philosophical underpinnings of the AI development, because AI cannot be understood, I think, separate from transhumanism and posthumanism. And those are the theological and philosophical backgrounds of the development of AI. So basically, let me just quote somebody. I'm going here and there and everywhere, so forgive me. But for example, on the online Hub Humanity Plus, the philosopher Max Murad was one of the leading founders. He said in the 90s, the urgency of the need to replace religions with other types of meaning-fostering system is all the more evident when we think of the inherent irrationalism of religion and its entropic retardation of progress. And there are actually some philosophers that have criticized the theologians for kind of remaining to the old scholastic mode instead of being able to follow personal insights and experience, so move on to new ideas. So so basically, when AI came out in 1956, and it was established basically on the foundation of cybernetics, like you, Dr. Walsh said, that it was already birthed in the 40s. Some Christian critics, they are labeled actually bioconservatives from the opposite side. They said that at this point, the brain got elevated to an organ of representation for the human identity. And of course, all based on the materialist philosophy that preceded. So we have, for example, Julian Huxley, who was even Director General of UNESCO from 1946 and 48, and he founded the World Wildlife Fund in 1961, who wrote a book titled New Bottles for New Wine, using Jesus's words, right? And basically, he presents a new idea of evolutionary humanism. That is, that humanity may, to use his words, transcend itself in its entirety. And human existence will be different from ours as ours is from the pagan man. And we are starting to see that right now. And he is the one that officially called the philosophy transhumanism. And with his brother, who also wrote a book called Brave New World, there was a story of tyranny and dehumanization carried out via the use of technology. So a dystopian plot. You know, he agreed that to prevent a Malthusian catastrophe due to population increase from wrecking all our hopes for a better world, that's what he said, we need to control the population, the growth of the population. So the zero population growth movement was launched in the 60s, but the name was changed in 2002 to population connection to quash any contentious association to eugenics, and also to be able to receive favorable reception for their efforts in lobbying, marketing, and youth education. And their website is still up and running now. Another interesting fact that maybe people don't know so much, maybe our audience doesn't know so much, is that in 1987, A-Life, or artificial life, was announced. And A-Life researchers are the ones that have been exploring the fundamental principles of how life emerges and evolves, and how to artificially create living things in computational mediums, mimicking biological phenomena. And for that, they use computer simulations, robotics, and biochemistry. So A-Life is a multidisciplinary field. And basically, the development of the transhumanist ideology was occurring in pace with the deconstruction of the concepts of human subjectivity and centrality that was stressed by the Enlightenment. And it was brought forth by philosophical post-structuralism and the counterculture. So the cyborg that Dr. Walsh mentioned was proclaimed by Donald Haraway in 1985 with the Manifest for Cyborgs, and came to represent the aspired collapse of all dualisms and a desirable recognition of equality with the other, be it nature or machine. And at the turn of the millennium, the literary critic Catherine Hales introduced the term posthuman, declaring a continuation of the post-human evolution in conjunction with intelligent machines. Now we see Altman coming up of OpenAI, coming up with a new project, and he is calling it World or World Network. And it's a comprehensive ecosystem of apps and integrations, subgrouped as World ID, World App, World Chain, World Coin, and possibly soon World Social. And it has a very complicated organizational structure. And he's also the founder in 2019 of the company called Tools for Humanity that has developed the Orb. It's a spherical biometric device for scanning the iris, and it's open sourced. And Altman wants, I quote, to anonymously and securely verify that you are a real and unique human and not a bot, for easy online verification and ensuring fair online activities like voting or buying concert tickets, he says. Well, basically, Altman and his team are doing excellent innovation, right? But what is their concept of the human? That's what I'm asking myself. In October 2023, Altman stated, I expect AI to be capable of superhuman persuasion well before it is superhuman at general intelligence, which may lead to some very strange outcomes, he said. And about a year later, he declared in a manifesto called The Intelligence Age, the HJI isn't just a tool, it's a new phase in human history. And then this year, Altman maintains that with the World Project, and I'm quoting, we wanted a way to make sure that humans stayed special and central. Now, I'm pretty puzzled by the statements that seem to be a little bit contradictory. And also, the World Foundation that is started, their website specifies both their philosophical and political aims. And I quote, to realize more inclusive, fair, and just institutions of governance and of the global digital economy. And the team backs certain targets of the UN Sustainable Development Goal 16, which promotes peaceful and inclusive societies, justice for all, and accountable and inclusive institutions at all levels. So similar to their aims, right? And among the 5 targets of Goal 16 that Altman and his team had chosen to support, we find number 4, by 2030, significantly reduce illicit financial and arms flows, strengthen the recovery and return of stolen assets, and combat all forms of organized crime. And number 9, by 2030, provide legal identity for all. Well, that may help fight crime, but again, I'm puzzled. Aren't Altman and his team taking on a bit too much authoritative and global responsibility? So the problem really remains of how we can and who is going to really make sure that AI is kept in check and is not going to be used in the end to really replace mankind. There is one proposed solution. It's called human-centered AI that prioritizes human needs, values, and capabilities. I'm sorry. It conceives a collaboration between humans at the center and AI functioning as assistants. And the company called the Interaction Design Foundation was founded in 2002, and it's said to be the biggest online design school globally. They offer many types of training courses. So, as I was mentioning, the major question remains about what regulations can be set in place and when, because law doesn't seem to be moving at the same pace as AI. So I don't know if I am okay, or am I beyond the time, or?
Well, I think it's good to, wrap it up in the next few minutes. Sure. Thank you.
Yeah, so there are Christians, like some Mormons, that espouse transhumanist ideas. And there are Christian theologians, they take a middle position, like Luther and Philip Hefner, by agreeing on the one hand to a human continuing evolution toward emerging technosapiens, because humans are already technology themselves, in that they are eyes and hands, which are like tools, they say. And on the other hand, they speak to the need for responsible development of technoscience. But discussions are ongoing, as Dr. Walsh, I think, was mentioning, about issues of rights for abouts, and the various opinions hinge on whether the theologians view them as person in the legal sense, and their positions respond to their own angle of interpretation of the Imago Dei doctrine. So, on the theological side, the religious side, there is division, and on the technological side, there is a little more unity, it seems like, a purpose, but a lot of competition. And so maybe that can make a window opportunity for the other voices to guide the research and to guide the development.
Very good.
Okay.
Thank you, Bruna. Thank you. Very quickly, Bruna, what's your gut reaction to this project that you've described being led by Sam Altman, the World Project? What is your gut? What does your gut tell you about that?
Well, I think that, as I was mentioning in my question, they're taking on too much responsibility that doesn't belong to them. But the problem is that scientists, as I said, they are in competition with each other, and their respective countries are also in competition, so support them, because they may provide for better arms to fight off other countries. So
and that project to me sounds like something that's personally, it's headed for disaster. But thank you very much, Bruna. Thank you. That was really interesting. We learned a lot about transhumanism, which is a brand new idea for many of us. I'd like to take the time now to ask Dr. Boyd if there might be some things that you could share with us from the chat that might be something that Bruna or Dr. Walsh could respond to.
Yes, thank you, Jim. It's interesting that a number of questions, very good questions in the chat box, many of them referring to values and ethics, the morality that by which AI systems would conduct themselves. And just as an example, I'll cite two questions together here. First, by David Payer, he says, my concern about the future of AI is not so much what the best of the Western world will do. We converse about the challenges of the ethical approach. It's those who have no such limits that I am most concerned about. Whichever nation reaches artificial general intelligence first will have the ability to disarm their opponents and steer the world to submission. How much of our concern should be directed there versus our ethical efforts among those in the West? And then David Eaton followed up with his comment, there's an adage regarding computer technology, garbage in, garbage out. AI seems to be prone to biases due to various biases that it gleans from the data sources it relies on. Yes? No? This points to the axiological aspects of this new frontier. No small matter. Perhaps Dr. Walsh, would you like to answer first?
Yeah, great questions. Just to David Payer, I think this whole area of the military use has always been part of technological development, from early tools and fire and everything, because of the nature, call it the fall, that we can't trust one another. And that distrust, on one hand, you could say that it's uncalled for. On the other hand, you could say, based on understanding a doctrine of the fall, to distrust, some aspect of distrust or caution about the other is very important. And as we observe history, we see that problem with the example of the 20th century nuclear proliferation. Very hard to get nations to not develop their weapons technologies, because they're not just out to harm people, but also thinking we're trying to preserve our civilization or whatever. If it's misguided, fine. But that whole issue of defense, peace through strength, etc., it's going to be tough. I think that's why Kissinger went to China at 98 or 99 years old to talk to Xi Jinping, because you can see, and the UN has set up an agency for AI oversight and will do its best, but we can see that an international organization, multinational organization, rule of law, is having a tough time today.
Yeah.
The second part of that, maybe to David Eaton, is that we'd like to think, we need to teach ethics to AI, but in many, philosophical, even theological courses in ethics, what you're teaching is the vast diversity of points of view about not here is what we all believe. We live in a world of contextualism, relativism, cultural contexts of the good way of life as being seen, different ways of interpreting the consequences of actions, of our duties, even of human rights. There's no great consensus on human rights so that it's easy to apply or to enforce. So it's partially the human situation. We don't have our act together. And so, as someone has also said, the data that is going into and being processed by AI is our data. And so, the AI is racist. How could it ever be racist? It's biased. Where do you get these extremist ideas? We know where it gets it. So how to find a way to control that? That is what alignment is about. And it isn't impossible, but certainly, and people are trying to work on it. But would we get everybody to agree? People sign the Paris Accords on climate change, but the nations go back and they don't really follow them. People work on bioweapons secretly underground bases where they'll develop nuclear and certainly AI. They're not going to share if they break through with something very profound and essential. They're not going to share that. Even the Manhattan Project wasn't going to share it with the Nazis. So it's a tough one there. It's a good question.
All right.
And, somehow we've always managed through. Even the horrors of human history are terrible. But even with life-threatening technology, we've not yet totally unraveled. I'm hopeful about AI, and I feel, using religious language, that there's some providence of technology being of assistance to human beings in fulfilling our ultimate purpose and the richness and fullness of life. And there's so much promise that many see in AI in agriculture, education, medicine, pharmaceuticals, nanobots that go into your body and get rid of the bad stuff. It's incredible. And there's a kind of a Cambrian explosion of science going on. But at the same time, it's the same old story, too.
Thank you,
you know, we're fortunate to have in our audience Christopher Wright, who's the director of the AI Trust Council. And Christopher was the speaker at our first AI session. And I'd love to hear, if you could find his 2 comments there, Dean Boyd, and share them with us, and maybe we might even call on him.
I can see one here immediately. Christopher saying, in answer to these concerns about how do we control and the use of AI ethically, morally, he says AI IQ throttles democratized amongst the people will keep AI in alignment. Humans must maintain control. So if Christopher, you're there, I would like to welcome you up. Go ahead and make your comment and we can bring you up.
No, absolutely. Yeah, no, we're working on this problem actually to solve it right now. And we've got alignment in our sites. It just takes support. And so we're looking at getting support from Universal Peace Federation and other groups, but we're getting close to figuring it out right now.
Wonderful. Yeah, definitely a lot of people working on it,
Yes.
Chris, and I applaud that effort.
Yeah, and one of the big things is awareness. There's so many people in Silicon Valley that share the sentiment of, whatever direction AI takes us, is our natural evolution, and so we should just accept it. And so there's a split because there's people that are very pro-human that are looking at it like, hey, we want to keep our reality, the same and intact. And that's in opposition to some and who are actually building these systems. And so as far as risk, that's one of the biggest risks right now is we have these individuals that are, profit driven and power driven. And so what we're looking to try to do is have a mechanism where we can analyze different safety organizations and try to see their true colors and true intent, and really focus on pro-human aspects, that and development that's leading towards a safer solution for AI that we can harness all the technology and the power, but we minimize the downside risk and ultimately keep our reality intact, and you can really see people talk about the New World Order and and then these big globalist ideas. And what you have to understand is that it's all about AI. And it's all about the control of the future of this technology, and how do we harness the power of AI with governance. And so there's a lot of people that have different viewpoints on how to govern populations, but this has been well thought out. And so the New World Order plan really is plan A. And if we don't do anything, we'll end up with plan A. And so it's up to us, the people. We have a couple of years, not a huge amount of time, but we have to come up with plan B. And so that's ultimately what we're working on right now.
Chris, who do you think the leading voice and most authoritative or the most influential voices in the issue of guardrails or governance?
Yeah, I look at figures like Mo Gadot. He's a fantastic leader in this space, and definitely a pro-human developer who's looking at managing the risks, but in a way that harnesses the capability of this technology, so we can lead into this bright future. But there's a lot of different leaders in the space, but that key fundamental of just that mindset where engineers are so focused on the power and capability of AI, but yet they really minimize the downside risk and tend to overlook it. And so from a safety perspective, if you're missing the glaring risks, it kind of puts that person in the category where it's like, well, they can't see the risk, so we need to focus on other people who can see it and ultimately mitigate those risks accordingly.
Okay. Okay, very good. Thank you, Chris. Thanks for being with us today.
Absolutely.
A couple of other questions, Jim, that are kind of related. This goes to the religious sphere and religious thought.
Well, that'll make us all feel more, that'll make us all feel more comfortable.
Well, I don't know. Well, let's see. Judah Topkins says, my concern, I'll read them both. My biggest concern with AI is that they are trying to replace religion and faith in a personal God. If I hear it right, it is that they are blaming God for all the misery and catastrophe on earth. So that's one side of the coin. Another side of the question, kind of the similar field.
So the idea is that God created the problems and AI will be the solution to those problems. Is that the idea?
No, actually, she's saying the opposite. The opposite, that AI would try to eliminate a belief in a personal God by blaming all the problems on the life of faith. Ursula Hanlon is asking a question. She cites Karl Barth. Ecclesia semper formanda est. And my Latin's not so great, but I think this means the church is always reforming. So she's asking, this goes to the question of church dogma and doctrine and the role of AI. Should AI be included in the selection of the next pope? Or could AI inject the idea, potentially, of a popus as well as a pope? In other words, AI could make people more open-minded. So different kind of area. Bruna, would you like to offer a response to that?
Walsh.
Bruna, would you like to reply? No? Dr. Walsh?
Yeah, in terms of the conclave and AI, I don't know. And of course, the movie Conclave has this surprise ending that leads to some kind of suggestion that eventually there's going to be, just like they talk about, there must be a Madam Secretary General at the UN, that one day the Catholic Church will open up, to the role of women and ordination and bishops and even cardinals and popes one day. It's possible. And I forgot the first part of the first reading you mentioned. What was that?
Judah's concern was that AI would try to force the blame on the world's problems on the life of faith and a belief in a personal God. That's her concern.
There have been theories that monotheism is blamed for, and the imago Dei concept, that the purpose is related to dominion, and that dominion led to domination of nature in even a patriarchal way or an anthropocentric way, that even the New Testament said left creation groaning in travail. That whether it's God that did it or the way religion evolved or developed, that it became not environment friendly, is one of the theories. I think there's a lot to say about how AI will transform religion technologically. It will have some impact on our brains, on our social relationships, on the sociology and culture in some powerful ways that I think technology often does, like the printing press at the time of Martin Luther, and what that did and how that led to a chain of events that opens up the scientific revolution and democracies and exploration and other things as information became spread more widely. And this is the internet has done that. In terms of religion, or in those of us that are in the Family Federation, knowing that there's generally an affirmative view of technology, in my view, that it is a good that can be managed and harnessed properly, that it's a certain kind of potential gift from God. Yes, it can be misused, as we can do with anything on God's good earth. So I think there's a lot to be said about religion. Even going back to Chris's idea, there are kind of new religions that kind of have the same features of religion with a framework of AI, and transhumanism is a kind of ultimate human achieving transcendence, achieving a kind of perfection or a kind of a divinity that is the ideal that people say, I must become Christ-like. I must become like the true son or true daughter of God. And so oftentimes, even the opposition to religion gets manifested in new features that can also be characterized as somehow simulations of the same structure of religion, the same dogmatism, the same evangelical fervor, the same set of doctrines and rituals in that. And I agree. I think there are corruptions in the Silicon Valley culture, and I think we may see that change. And will it come from America? We don't know. There may be other places there, and there may be new religious imagination coming forward with new ideas that take us, that it may not be, we know, to go back and retrieve what we once were and lost, but riding on this momentum, but finding ways to manage it, but find its potential and promise at the same time.
Good.
Thank you, Dr. Walsh. I'll turn it back to you, Jim.
Well, as we close, one of the things that comes to my mind is that the idea a big idea in unificationism is this concept that we're living in the age of high noon, that everything becomes transparent and visible, and people's nature and deeds become unclothed, so that everyone knows whether people's deeds in their lives and their writings are constructive or destructive. And so it seems to me that one of the features of artificial intelligence might be to sort of support the emergence of this age of high noon, where there's no hiding from the direct sunlight of truth overhead. It's a pretty abstract concept, but that's one thing that comes to my mind. Well, thank you everyone for being here for this kind of provocative, mind-opening, awareness-raising conversation that I know might require some review, because we will have the video available, and if you're like me, you'll probably go back and watch the video to make sure you really understood everything that came across, and get a good look at Dr. Walsh's PowerPoint slides, which is helpful to further educate us on this important topic. But I want to thank everyone for being here. We had about 60 people, which is a great turnout. And please stay tuned for what comes to you through HPI and your emails for further events and video links and publications. Thanks very much, everybody.